Namaste.
Namaste.
Welcome to this insightful conversations at BhāratShakti. Welcome, Chad. So this is a series in which, through which we explore how individuals working in different domains of human activity are able to express in their new ways, in their ways that are unique to them, the timeless spirit of what Sri Aurobindo speaks of as the essence of Indian culture, where one tries to go within, and from within, the truth that arises from within gets expressed through their work, through their, whatever field of work that they are engaged in. And today we are happy to have you with us, Chad, all the way from Missouri, USA. And before we get into the topic, which we have sort of titled Art, Creativity, and Inner Quest, I would like to just briefly share a brief note about you. So Chad Kilgore is a visual artist, husband, and father. He lives and works in Missouri, USA. He's a follower of integral yoga and has a deep appreciation and drive to learn and apply what Sri Aurobindo and Mother have done for humanity and the earth as a whole. So this is very sweet, precise. That's what, in a way, we are trying to do through our various projects and in this series of insightful conversations. Because in a way, I think the spirit of India, what India has to do for humanity, for the earth, that spirit, that essence, has to be expressed in numerous ways all across the world. So in that sense, Indian spirit is not about the geography or the boundary, but it's about a view of life, work, and how we want to evolve through our work in our life as individuals, as collectives. So we are very happy that you agreed to do this conversation with us. And I would like to straight away jump into the first question for you. If you can speak a little bit about your journey as a visual artist. Now, I know you've briefly mentioned that you have tried other things in life also, which are not necessarily connected with the scene of art or artistic process. But without going into details of that, what was there a turning point in your life when you kind of recognized that this creating art in this way through this medium, and we'll talk about the medium in a little bit, creating art will be your life's work? And was it a gradual process or was it like a sudden inspiration? So if you can
Um,
speak brief about that.
well, first of all, I want to thank you for having me. Being able to talk about art and spirituality and life and Sri Aurobindo, and this is all very, very meaningful to my life, and I'm just very grateful that you asked me to come on with you. So thank you to you. And so I had sort of an unconventional path to art. A lot of people come from here, at least here in the U.S. To be taken as a serious artist, you got to go to art school and have all the right credentials. Well, I have none of that. I have, in fact, my art. Whenever I first started making art, the inspiration came from I was on an antique pick with my parents, meaning, they go and find antiques from people's barns and sheds and sales and all this stuff. And so I was with them one day and we were in this guy's barn and there was this old stack of glass that was just stuck in the mud and it had these paper dividers between it that had just decayed over time and they was stuck to the back of the glass. And, I lifted one of these pieces up and it was just gorgeous. It was just decayed beautifully on the backside. And I just put a frame on them and hung them in my space because I was doing a show in Texas. And so I had, 10 or 12 of these things framed and I sold all of them before the show even started to some other dealers. And I thought they were so beautiful that I thought, what could I do to even come close to making something like this? And so then I started, just playing with paper and on glass, and just staining it and turning it different colors, tearing it away, just experimenting, really, just playing. And that was kind of my first foray into making anything, because like I was into that sort of thing when I was young, but then I got into playing sports, and that kind of took the forefront of my focus. And so I didn't get back into that until I was probably, I don't know, I think I was 25 or 26 at the time. So um, that's been my unconventional path into art, because yeah, ever since then, it's just been, um, I've been more and more addicted and focused on it, and it's consumed my life, so to speak. So, yeah, but that's how I came to art, anyways. And in fact, I didn't even really know what I was doing. I was just making things because I had no conception of what contemporary art was, modern. I had no art history, no background. I was just intuitively making things that I thought were pretty. It was
Mhm.
just for an aesthetic quality at the time. I had really no foundation to build from. And I learned that later, that I needed something to make this make sense. Like, there's some kind of creativity coming through me, but I didn't know how to articulate that into words. And I'm really still working on that now. So,
Yeah. So maybe we can hear from you a little bit more about the process. You said it came very intuitively, but so it involves glass, staining, paper. Is it like a new form of stained glass work? If
oh,
you can speak a little bit
it's
about.
it's not stained glass, and this was the first things that I made. So it was just, a clear glass sheet, and then I would take, before I put the paper on it, I would stain the paper with coffee, and then I would glue it to the piece of glass, and then I would tear it away, and then re-stain it in kind of an organic pattern. So then whenever you put it on the wall, you could see through the parts that I tore away to the back of the wall, if that makes sense. So, but I welded some frames for them, so I had to learn how to weld and do some other processes to kind of bring that to life. But that's that was the first thing I made. I make a lot of stuff on with aluminum frames and canvas now, But yeah, that was the glass pieces were the first things that I made. And I do have some pictures of those I can share later.
Yeah, I think that was good. Just going to say that because also I think I would also like to know if in this process, this even though it was very intuitive for you, somewhere you also had a sense that the role that light will play in the way the final art will be perceived or seen, because depending on where you place that glass with a certain kind of
Mhm.
stained paper on it and what direction the light is coming in. I mean, again, it seems very interactive kind of thing. It has to interact with light the way I'm picturing it.
Yeah. No, it does for sure. And then people, whenever they bring these into their home, they kind of have to um, pick a space that they think would
Mhm.
be best, that they can see the work, that it doesn't get too reflective, or sometimes they enjoy that part of it too, where there's a little bit of reflection
Yeah,
in the work too.
yeah. So yes, if you have some pictures, that will be great. We can talk a little bit more once we.
Sure. Let me see if I can figure this out. I've never shared my screen. I'm usually just listening, so uh, we'll see.
So
Um,
there should be just.
okay, let's see. Window. Oh, I'll just go to this. Okay. Installation views. Share. Okay, is that sharing?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. So if you see the pieces on the left and the right of that big piece,
Mm-hmm.
those were the those were the pieces that my first things that I made. And
Wow. Wow.
yeah, and it's again, it's stained paper on glass, and the little holes you see in the dark spot, that's the
Mhm.
wall in the back because you can see through the glass to the wall.
Ah, ah,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So it
Okay.
just kind of
So,
creates like an organic pattern. Um, yeah,
yes.
and these were luckily enough that this was my first kind of foray into art, but it also was pretty well received, and so it it bought me time to kind of develop as an artist. You know, enough people liked them and were buying them that I could spend more time in the studio and get to know art and my true voice, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, so what I guess art historians or art experts would call it abstract, but I mean the flow, the organic feel to it, the flow. I don't know, is it a coffee stain you mentioned?
Yeah.
Yeah. The natural feel to it and the flow, the way the pattern is flowing. I mean, one can read a lot into what you are trying to
Right.
express. And from a viewer's perspective, also what the um, whatever I perceive, whatever I'm open to at that point. So the way, in the left one, one, two,
Hmm.
three, four, the top circle that
Yeah.
is coming up there. It's very really so many thoughts are coming in my mind, but I don't want to go there. But I think this kind of engaging the audience, engaging the viewer through the expression that has come from within. It's quite marvelous. Thank you. So, do
Thank
you
you.
have more pictures to share of your artwork before we? Okay.
Yeah. Um,
Okay. So,
some of these are
yeah.
in homes and some of these are just in my gallery space.
Mm.
Um,
Okay. So,
this piece is like it's 16 foot long, which I'm not sure what that
mm.
would be in
And this
meters,
is
but
all paper on glass?
yeah. Yeah, most of my work is with paper. So all these little pieces here are folded pieces of paper
Hmm.
that I kind of start from the bottom and work my way up in this.
Yeah. The sheen on this one, I mean, it's quite fantastic. I don't know if
Thank you.
it's just the play of light, but the kind of staining process that you've used.
Right. Yeah. I try to make it to where it's kind of a gradient of light to dark. And, I put a lot of stain towards the bottom and kind of light towards the top there. And,
Mm. Mm.
yeah, sometimes I got to take some color off with some different solvents and stuff.
Mm.
But, yeah, I try to make it kind of a gradient effect, but also to where it looks natural, where it's not synthetic, if that makes
Mm.
sense.
Yeah, yeah. Yes.
Mm.
Oh, wow. Again, the center one. Wherever you have the center and the circle, the circle and the
Yeah.
circumference going, it's just immediately catches my attention. That's very beautiful. Oh, this is the
Thank you.
same one?
It's the same one, just a different angle. The
The the
light is
text the texture is very, very interesting. So, tell us a little bit about the process before we go deeper
sure.
into the intuitive aspect of the process.
Mhm.
So this is just any paper you choose, or
So, yeah, this is just I use a thin, acid-free paper, and so it's really very thin. It's almost like computer paper. It's that
mm,
thin. But I fold it, each one of these pieces, and I think there's like this middle piece. I think there's maybe around 2,000 individual pieces on there. But I fold each one of those pieces of paper, 10 or 12 times, and so it's a thin piece of paper, but it gets very thick by the time I apply it to the canvas. And so I stain it once, and I create these little rectangles, and then I'll glue it on there in the pattern um, that comes to me, and then after that, then I'll color it.
mm,
Which the coloring of it is really the hard part for me because to be satisfied with the color often takes, I usually don't get it right the first time, you know, and I have to keep kind of iterating and changing things until I feel like it's where it needs to be.
Mm.
Yeah.
So there are two things I picked up from what you just shared, Chad. One, the process of folding 10, 12 times. And then you said, what comes to me? So I want to go dig into both these things. When you are folding the paper 10, 12 times, and you have so many pieces of paper, like in any of these pieces, I can't even fathom how many pieces of paper there are. What is that process like for you, that repetitive? Is it like a meditative process or
Very much so.
yeah.
Yeah, which is it's kind of funny because I'm like my entire life I've never really been a patient person, but
Mm,
you know, with I've actually, you know, having kids, obviously this is teaching me patience, but also, you know, this aspect of making this work makes is forcing me to be patient too, but it also is very meditative and you know, I'm able to clearly think about what I'm doing and what I want to be doing. And um, yeah, it's just kind of forced. It's kind of a forced patience. But in order to kind of make the things that I want to make, that I feel like I need to be making, um, it's for some reason it just involves a lot of process oriented things like making thousands of pieces of paper. You know, I wish I could be one of those people that just slaps some paint on a canvas and says, we're done, but
yeah,
it doesn't work like that. It's just I can't be satisfied doing that. So it's just I don't know if it's just something in me that thinks I need to go through a certain amount of labor or something until, you know, certain amount of physical exhaustion or something until it's done. But yeah, that's how it's turned out for me anyways.
yeah. No, I think yeah, I think that repetitiveness teaches us many things. Patience, of course, is a very big thing, but also the gradual perfection that comes in, where we are not speeding up the process to get it over with, but at least that's what I have felt. Sometimes now I don't do that, but I used to, when I just moved into this house where we are living now, about 11, 12 years ago, more than that. Um, I used to do a lot of small, tiny flower arrangements all over the home.
Mhm,
Just spending 2 hours in the morning doing that. And I found that even though at times it was a little, I had to get ready for other things and I would get up early, but that process, that repetitiveness of arranging, especially the tiny, petals and washing the flowers and all that was a very,
mhm.
um, it slows you down and it gives
Yeah,
you um, that that urge. I think it made me conscious of this urge for doing things right, doing things perfectly, as
right.
perfectly as I can. So
Yeah, and that's beautiful because I think, you know, especially in our day and age, we've a lot of people have lost that, being able to slow down because everything's so fast and get it done now. And, you know, we're on social media 24/7 and there's just a lot of noise
yeah,
in the environment. And I think I think we need more than anything just to be able to slow down a little bit.
yeah, yeah, yeah. The other thing you mentioned, that when you start figuring out the color or what comes to me, so I want to hear a little bit more about what comes to you, and I'll share that what I saw on your website. You talked about that this technique that you use, the process that you use to create these collages, you are trying to express some intricate narratives. So how does that work for you? Does that narrative come to you that you are trying to express through the choice of colors, the gradation, the gradient that you
Mhm.
use for different, hues in the color, different shades? Or is it that once it is done, you are focused more on the aesthetic of the process? And once it's done, you step back and you say, okay, this is the story
Right.
that is being communicated. So if you can just share about that process a little bit.
Sure. Yeah, so like the narrative, um, I almost never begin with a narrative.
Mm,
Like I never have like a preconceived idea of what I want something to mean or stand for, because often I find that that kind of reveals itself when I'm during the process of making it. And so I usually don't know what I want to like name something, or what I feel that it represents, until it is complete, or at least I've got a good idea of where it's going. And um and most of the time it's a reflection of what I'm studying at the time or what I'm reading, which is almost always something from Sri Aurobindo or the Mother. And so, like this one in the middle, um, is self-exceeding, is the name, self-exceeding. And I read that in I think in the Life Divine, that, just to get a glimpse of beyond your current state, is to exceed your current self, and just to get a glimpse of that and know that there's something more. Um, that's what I was reading about at the time, and that's why I named it that. And it just really struck a chord with me. And that's
mm,
um, usually what I name these pieces, or what I feel that they mean. Now, whether that's true or not, I'm not sure, but that's what that's why I name them these things.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think the way I understand it, and I should mention that I'm not an artist, I've not studied art as a subject. I'm just a curious person in
Well,
this
I
regard.
have to say,
I'm
like, I've read
interested
some of
in
your
art.
articles. I've
Um,
read some of your articles, and, I've listened to some of your interviews and your talks on YouTube and stuff. And for not having studied art and not saying you're not an artist, you know an awful lot about art and the artistic process.
I think again, like you said, the all gratitude to Mother and Sri Aurobindo. I don't know, they just especially when I read Sri Aurobindo's writings on Indian art. Last night I was spending some time with an article that I had read long time back, where he reviewed one magazine, which I think in 1920s, Rupam. And I was just blown away, and I'd forgotten what he had mentioned about each of the articles. And I can't locate that issue. It is so old. I can't find it in any of the websites.
Mhm.
But it's just, yeah, I think spending time with their, what they have said about art, I just have become more and more interested in that. But yeah, so just speaking as a layperson, I think what I also find, you said about the title that comes to you, whatever, based on what you are reading from Sri Aurobindo and the Mother, particularly this piece, let's say self-exceeding. I don't know whether it, as a rasik, as a person seeing this work of art, even if I didn't know the title, if there is something in me that is open to the idea of, say, finding the center within and then trying to go from there, this particular piece will speak something. So, what again, I think what your art tries to do is it engages, it invites the viewer to make their own, I don't know, make their own story
Yeah.
about what this piece is telling them.
Uh
So
huh.
it's an engagement with the light and engagement with the viewer, the audience. So in a way, that interaction, that invitation is very, very interesting. Um, so
Thanks.
that's what I
Yeah,
find.
and I've juggled back and forth between, should I even name these pieces? Should I just number them? Because, kind of what you said, should I just leave the interpretation up to the person that is viewing it? Um, so I still go back and forth on that. Should I interject my own thought process onto it, or should I just let it be and let the person, um,
Yeah,
kind of have their own interpretation?
yeah,
So I
yeah.
don't know the right
Yeah, and I don't know, I haven't talked to any artist before in terms of why they keep certain works as untitled. I've never understood
Yeah.
why untitled.
Yeah. Well, that would be my reason, is because, I don't want to interject um, my own thought process onto it and um, get in the way of the viewer coming to their own conclusions. But
Yeah, well, that's so. Okay, let me go back to one or two other things that caught my attention as I was going through your website. Um, and this is where, oh my, this is beautiful. The circular
thank
pieces
you.
are very good. Can we see a few more if you have?
Yeah, let's see.
Oh, okay.
Uh,
The one that's like a very different style here.
oh, here, the
The
white
big
one.
one. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and on occasionally I've worked with plaster too, and this
Hmm.
is a plaster piece. It's very kind of topographical.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, but I don't know, I've kind of stopped working with plaster, at least momentarily, because
Hmm.
I'm.
And the smaller works on the side,
Mhm.
that's paper.
Yeah, and I don't. Again, this one's in glass, and I don't think I have a good straight on shot of
Okay.
that, but
Okay.
it's also circular, and there's also
Mhm.
I've noticed there's something about the circle and the square
Yeah.
that I keep coming back to for some
Yeah.
reason. Yeah.
Yes, well, that's the very a sense, as Stella Kramrisch would say, the circle and the square.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, the centerpiece again, and both. This is in your gallery, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. It was, I think,
The
last fall, I think it was.
and
Hmm.
these pieces are gone now.
Yeah. Hmm.
So these are pretty big pieces. The center one
Yeah.
and like.
I think this middle one here, this green piece is something like 80 by 80 inches or 82 by 82. And the
Wow.
ones next to it are 4 feet by 5 feet.
So,
Also have a scale problem. I tend to make big things for some reason.
mm, yeah, I mean, I don't know, each of these pieces would have taken you, what, months to complete?
Well, after, because it's kind of the first one, yeah, took me a long time to kind of figure out the right way to. Let me see if I have
Hmm.
a, well, maybe you can kind of see better, but I fold these papers a different way, and each paper is maybe, like 2 inches long. And
Hmm.
so just to figure out the process of how I need to fold that, you know, in a different way that'll do what I want it to do, because it stands up about an inch or so in each of these lines,
Yeah.
and it kind of makes a concentric pattern. But to figure out how I wanted to do it, and that took some time. But kind of once I learned how to do that, it became sort of process
Hmm.
oriented to where I knew how to do it, knew what I was looking for, and it became
Hmm.
easier
Hmm.
then.
Wow, the darkness and the light within. I don't know what you've titled this, but the light within is very powerful.
Yeah, I can't. I'd have to see. I can't even remember all of the titles that I've given some of these, but yeah.
Yeah, wonderful. Um, yeah, can we go back to the other one where you had the one? Yes,
This one,
this one. Yeah, so
yeah.
this middle one is also glass, but it's like
No, it's
in,
folded paper. So all of these in this picture are folded paper.
the base is also paper.
The base, sorry. So the base is I weld an aluminum frame, and then I
Oh,
put a wood panel on top of the wooden frame, or
okay,
on the top of the aluminum frame, and then I cover that in canvas.
okay,
So my
okay,
base is canvas that I glue to.
okay. And the paper is glued on canvas.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Okay, okay, okay. The one on the right, well, I don't know, my right, the yellowish one
Uh-huh.
on here.
Yeah.
Um, again, the light is quite catchy. It just, I don't
I'm
know,
gonna see if
somehow.
I have a closer picture of that. I think I do. Yeah.
Yeah. So somehow, I don't know, the very first thing that came to me when I saw this in the close-up, no, but just the way it was displayed there, it's like as if a door is about to open and mother is about to come. That light, it was just
Maybe
playing.
that's what it is. Maybe that's what it is. Yeah. Because a
So,
lot of people have, whenever they see it, they tell me, I feel like I could walk down that,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah.
So, maybe that is it. Yeah. Or moving
Maybe.
from the darkness to the light or something.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So let's go with that a little bit and explore this. Your so you there is the art that you do, and then the other journey that you are on, which is to, your inner quest, your turning to Sri Aurobindo and the mother. Was it again kind of like, parallel quest that you were on as you were exploring
Yeah,
your creative process, and how one informed the other, if you can speak a little bit
sure.
about that?
So in in 2019, I was reading a book that my friend had wrote, and his in the book was a girl named India, and
Hmm.
it just struck me. And we named our daughter India,
Oh.
and she was born in 2019. And this was before I had come to Sri Aurobindo or anything, but it had just struck me as like such a beautiful name. And yeah, I just wanted to add that. But in 2020 um, was really, I think, where things started to get more serious for me because we had named our daughter India, and then I saw this book called India's True Voice,
Hmm.
and so I was reading this book, and it had all these quotes by Sri Aurobindo, and I was just, after about the 10th or 12th quote that had just exploded my mind, I had to I had to go look up who this guy was, and so then I bought the Life Divine, and after I got 100, 200 pages into that, I knew I needed to search no more because
Hmm.
before that, it felt like a decades long search of searching for something, but I didn't know what, I didn't know where to look. I had brief stints in Christianity and just some occult writings, like light occultism, like in Rudolf Steiner and stuff like that. But nothing ever really satisfied until I read Sri Aurobindo, and it was, that was it. I didn't, all of my questions were answered. Um, and let's see, I got sidetracked. What was the original question?
No, no, this was the question that, if you can speak a little bit of your journey, how you came to Sri Aurobindo, and then how it influenced your other creative
Oh,
journey.
yes, yes, yes. So, yeah, and so I had this kind of awakening, I would say, in 2020, and I kind of understand whenever the Christians say to be born again, like I feel like that's what happened. And I started kind of noticing because my studio is right out back. It's just 200 feet from the house, and I started noticing like there's no real difference between my spiritual life and my work and my family life, and all these things are kind of just tied into one thing. And I noticed it was really integral. And you know, then I later read the famous quote by Sri Aurobindo that all life is yoga, and I was like, well, you put it into one sentence. It couldn't be more clear. This is all one thing. I don't really have a separate work life, except, it's all just kind of melded into one thing. And so, yeah, I would say since 2020 and since discovering Sri Aurobindo and the mother, like my life is totally changed. My worldview is completely changed. I feel like I've found what I'm looking for, and I'm on the right path, both artistically and spiritually. And yeah, that's where I'm at right now. I'm just trying to keep uncovering and getting myself out of this profound ignorance that I'm in. So,
Yeah, well, we are all in that profound ignorance, and that light is leading us towards more and more light, or a deeper understanding of ourselves and our place in the world. Um, yeah, I can see this very clearly. So I have, yes, with my interest in art, I have always been drawn to more traditional Indian motifs and patterns, and even whether you call it folk art or the classical art of, frescoes and great temple sculptures, and, the beautiful temple architecture and all that. And I have always felt that maybe not much abstract art speaks to me, but there
mhm,
have been few exceptions. One Indian artist who has really, whose abstract work I find very engaging is Raza, Sayyid Haidar Raza, who was deeply inspired by the concept of Bindu, the dot from which the
mhm,
center, from which the central dot, the nada from which everything begins. So he has used a lot of tantric inspired art to make these, grand canvases. He was one of the highest selling painters also at one point of time. So there have been few. And with your work also, I find even the monochromatic is just so inviting for me, maybe because I find somewhere I can sense that that idea what Mother and Sri Aurobindo, especially Mother, has spoken so much about what the future art and artistic process would be like. And I want to
mhm.
bring in here what Sri Aurobindo speaks of, in human cycle in particular, about the subjective age, the times that we are going to go in, where again, deeper inner truths, inner realizations of truth, inner experiences of the truth will be expressed through the future art. And I see that coming up in your work. Again, I don't know whether as an artist or as a student of Sri Aurobindo, you were consciously practicing that, or it just intuitively came through your work. Because I don't know if there are other artists who are using even this kind of process. This is very unique to you, no?
Yeah, I mean, it's not like it was inspired. I didn't see another artist and was like, oh, maybe I can. It just kind of just came. Um, so I don't, if there is some out there, I'm not aware of them, but yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah. So how do you now that you said you are not um, into the art world, you were not, aware of or not
Hmm.
studied in art school, but how do you now engage with the contemporary art scene? And when you are out there doing your shows, how is
Right.
your work received, and how do you communicate with other artists or engage
Yeah.
them?
So I would be considered in the art world an
Mm.
outsider, because normally the traditional path would be you go to art school and then you get into a gallery, and hopefully it's a reputable gallery, and you kind of work your way up through that way. But I am on a path of I'm not represented by any gallery, and so I sell my work at at a show in Texas, which originally started as an antique show, and now it's kind of turned into like a design show, and a lot of interior designers come to the show, and so they'll place my work with their clients, and people that are just looking for things for their home also um, come through, and they will buy my pieces too. But yeah, I'm very much existing outside the art world. And there are other artists at the show as well who are also have sort of a similar trajectory in that we're all existing outside the art world, but we're making it work because the art world is kind of a closed system in the US. You kind of got to know somebody, or it's kind of it's kind of gate kept, so to speak.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. But again, see, I think through your own way, you are challenging that conventional path that has been laid out. And again, I'm reminded of something the mother says, that anyone who has a clear understanding, and it's not just a mental, intellectual understanding, but anyone who has a clear sense of harmony and can create harmony has the soul of an artist. So harmony is so important in the way she describes what art experience should be like, both from the perspective of a creator and or the artist, and the one who's looking at the art, who's experiencing the art. So have you
That's beautiful.
felt that? I mean, certainly the colors, the gradation, everything, it's so perfectly harmonious from a viewer's perspective. How do you experience that?
Well, in the like kind of my earlier work, it was more I would say it was more kind of trying to find my voice and trying to I was afraid of using color, and things were more just it wasn't chaotic, but it was more chaotic than this, I would say. And I think the more like I learn about myself, the more I read, the more I evolve as a person, the more I kind of gravitate towards color, towards more perfect form, and not perfect, so to speak, that it's like too perfect, because I still like a little bit of that organic feel to it. The lines aren't exactly perfect,
Mm.
but yeah, I've kind of gravitated towards more color and form, and I think that might be because of the things I'm doing inwardly is
Mhm.
expressing outwardly.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's a good segue. You mentioned about the inward work, the inner work that you are doing. And on your website, I read that you speak something about that there is a lot of, let me just say, I have that word right here about it says central to your practice is the rigorous purification process, which is akin to passing through fire, where impurities are shed to reveal the essence of purity, and this drives the evolution of your work. So, this passing through fire, this, in India, we have this term Agni Pariksha, like literally going through fire. This process of purification, this is a very yogic process, very
Hmm.
inner process. So, how do you see that, sort of superimposed or juxtaposed with your artistic process? What's this purification process that is happening as you are working on, let's say, on this piece of art?
Yeah. So, like earlier when I said I wish I could just slap some paint on there and call it done, like it's just not enough for me. Like I just feel like I have to go through a certain like me and the piece I'm working on have to go through a certain amount of um, work or trial and error, or just we have to go through a certain amount of process before I can feel like it's a finished piece. And usually, with this particular yellow piece right here, it comes with the color is really where the fire trial by fire comes into play, because the color is the hardest part to get and the most tricky part. Are you still there? I think you're frozen.
Um,
Oh, okay. You're
yeah,
back
I
now.
think, yeah.
Could you hear me though?
No, I could not. Wait.
Okay.
Are you able to hear me now?
I can hear you and see you
Okay,
just
because
fine.
my computer still says it's unable to connect, but somehow I'm connected. We won't touch it.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, we were talking about Satya will cut that part out.
Yeah, that's fine.
You were talking about how you and with you the artwork, you have to go through a certain process.
Yeah, yeah. I feel like me and the piece that I'm working on have to go through a certain amount of trial and error and
Hmm.
reworking and recoloring, until I feel like it's a complete piece, because I just can't do something quickly and feel like it's gone through enough
Hmm.
work for it to be complete. And so usually with these pieces, it happens with the coloring. You know, this piece was actually green
Oh.
before it was yellow. And so
Oh.
you can't tell from this picture, but there's little hints of green here and there, that you could tell if you were very close up to it. So, um, and it just gives it a certain depth, whenever you have like these little extra notes to it. And then after, it had gone through 3 or 4 iterations, I felt like it was a complete piece. But yeah, it's got to go through a certain amount of trial and error, and it's got to go through the fire before I can feel like it's a pure piece.
Hmm.
And same
Oh.
like you said in your message that it's a very yogic process as well. We're
Yeah.
all trying to purify ourselves and you know
Yeah.
shed certain thought processes and patterns and stuff.
Yes. 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 Um, for an artist to articulate that it is about shedding of certain impurities that come, even though, okay, there are impurities within, but whatever is within comes out in whatever we do outside.
Yeah.
So, whatever might be the outcome of those inner impurities that come in your artwork, and this laborious process, as I understand,
Hmm.
is your purification um,
Absolutely.
technique
Yeah.
for the work. Yeah.
Yes.
It makes actually, it makes a very good sense. It makes perfect sense from any creative process. It's like for a writer, when you are doing, okay, I do some more or less semi-academic writing. Even in that process, there comes a point where you say, okay, this is what I really want to say, or you
Yeah.
remove the extra words, or you,
Yes.
add the extra insight or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, the iterative process. It's
Right.
yeah, yeah.
It is kind of it is, because I like minimalism, in the
Mm,
fact that it's only, I feel like it's only saying what is necessary and kind of
mm,
leaving the rest. I also call it addition, addition through subtraction. So we gain something by losing the extra, and I think that's what I try to do. I try to not. I want it to stand on its own, but I want it to also say something without being too much noise, so to speak.
mm, mm. Yes, yes, yes. Um, Again, you also speak of another aspect of this yogic or spiritual process, the physical and mental refinement that is part of your creative process, and also, of course, your inner journey. If you want to say a little bit about this, I mean, I don't know, this physical refinement, inner process, okay, mental patterns, mental dispositions, biases, prejudices, letting go of that. But how does this physical refinement process work for you in your artistic process, in your creative process, in the sense, one is about the minimalism, the choice of colors, the shading, the gradation. What other physical refinement process you might be using in creating the
Right.
artwork?
So I would say not in this work, but in let me see if I even have an example of mm, something like this. So this is kind of one of my earlier things, and
Hmm.
this is what I mean whenever I was
This is
I
plaster?
this is plaster, and it's fabric right here in the tan areas, and there's little metal pieces here. But
Oh.
this is what I mean. Like I was kind of this is kind of before I turned more towards color and form,
Hmm.
and you know, it still makes sense in my head, but it's not. It's very chaotic and kind of not as it doesn't have as much life in it. It feels like it's more towards destruction or something. But so like a piece like this, I would take off layers of it, and I'd peel back layers and try to keep only what I thought was necessary
Mm,
um, in the piece. So a lot of my earlier stuff would involve layering pieces or material, and then I would take it back off and then reapply something new. So it was a kind of a constant um, building up and tearing down. So I think that's probably what I was referring to in that.
mm, yeah. So
But
you're,
yeah, I don't know. I very much turned. It's been a weird thing because I very much turned towards a color, and it's so strange because I spent so many years of had no color or very little color, and now I like earth tones, but earth tones still. But yeah,
yeah,
it's been weird.
yeah. I'll come to the color thing in a minute. When you showed that piece where you said about the layering and the peeling off,
Yeah,
the thought that came to me was that it's okay, you're creating art, adding on layers, removing them, and then putting them back, but you're also creating yourself.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Very true. I mean, yeah, I feel like that's also part of the yogic processes of
Yes, yes, yes.
removing, you know, bad worldviews and things like that, and replacing them with ones that are harmonious and that
Yeah.
are in alignment with truth and beauty. And
Yes, yes. So, just one other point that came to me about the color. I think sometime back you were thinking of coming to India. Have you been here before to India?
I've never I've never been. I would love to come visit.
Yeah.
And yeah,
So you come, and I'm pretty sure spending some time in India, you will fall in love with colors even more.
I think so. I look, and it's just color overload there, so I probably
Yeah,
would.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I think your gradually mother is preparing you from complete monochromatic to some colors,
Hmm.
and then you'll be bombarded with color. Um, so I want to kind of go back to again taking Shrobindo's help again, where he speaks of that sure for most of the art and most of the artists, the inspiration comes from what is very sensuous and what is of the earth, and yet all good art should take both the artist and the experiencer of art to something beyond earth. So from what is visible, all this beautiful art, to what is invisible. So if you can speak a little bit about how you have experienced that sort of transcendence while you are in the
Yeah.
process of creating art, when you feel it is done with all the layering, peeling, and re-layering, when you step back and stand back from it, have you experienced that? And have you heard from those who, stand in front of your art
Yeah.
and
I have, and I'm very grateful when somebody stands in front of it and tells me that they feel something from it, because that's ultimately, my hope is that it's not just something aesthetically pleasing on the wall to fill a space on the wall. I want it to be an emotional, they feel something, even if it's not consciously, maybe if it's subconsciously. But that's my hope, is that I can kind of provoke like an emotional response, and feel like it's making a connection rather than just to paint a pretty picture. That doesn't interest me whatsoever. Just to so
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah.
yeah, but the as far as the process goes, yeah, I try and not interject my own mental pictures of what I think would work great. I try to just be kind of an empty vessel whenever I approach art, and I full surrender, and I just say a prayer in hopes that I can be used as an instrument for whatever the divine wants to express through me.
Mm.
And I try to get out of the way and just do the work that I feel is it should be done.
Yeah. So art as yoga for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Very, very beautifully said. Um, I remember hearing from an artist once where she was doing a show of her paintings, and somebody came with a piece of fabric and tried to match with one of her works. That, will this work with my sofa? That fabric was,
Yeah, exactly.
sofa
Well,
thing.
I get so much of this, and I understand because I work with a lot of interior designers, and they're trying to create the feng shui or of their
Yeah.
client's home, and I get that, but that is the least important aspect for me. Even Sri Aurobindo, I think, said something to the effect of the aesthetic quality is the lowest.
Yes.
And the
Yes.
spiritual quality is the highest, and that's what I'm trying to achieve, is a spiritual quality in my work, not
Yeah.
just, of course I want it to be aesthetically pleasing too,
Yeah.
but I want to interject, if I can, that consciousness that's coming through me into the piece, and I want that to say something as well.
Yeah. 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 And I think there is a lot of calmness in your work. I sense that it makes you calm. And again, maybe because I have always enjoyed art with full of colors,
Hmm.
and living in India, everything that you see, your wardrobe, I mean, everything is color, and I enjoy that. And there is also a part of me that I wouldn't say really go for minimalism, even in
Hmm.
in home decor or whatever, but the calmness of the spaces, the calmness of a certain work of art, or even the calmness of your table, how you want to arrange your desk. So
Yeah,
I sense that calm quality in your work. It can bring
thank
that vibration of calmness and quietude in any space. So I'm very happy that through this I've got to, get some glimpses of your gallery also. Um, so yeah,
you. Yeah,
but I'm
thank you.
sure your workspace will have its own messes.
Oh, I cannot show you my workspace. It is
Yeah,
an
yeah,
absolute explosion right now because
yeah,
I just packed, I just got back from this show I did in Texas, and right before I pack up and I get done, it's a rush to get everything finished and crated up, and I haven't cleaned it up yet since
yeah,
before I left. So,
yeah. Now, before we conclude, I want to just ask you one more question, but I also just want to take this opportunity to introduce me to this kind of artwork. I mean, I had no idea. I mean, I heard about and seen collages and mixed medias, and I've seen works where, acrylic or oil paint, and then, use of fabric pieces and things like that, mixed media works. I've seen them up close, and some of them, in fact, I used to have one such work when I lived in the US, which I had to give to a friend when I was shifting to India. And it had something to do with the moonlight. It was very
mm,
beautiful. So I had purchased it from an artist from India only. I carried it all the way there.
yeah,
Yeah, so mixed media has had an appeal for me, but this kind of I wouldn't call it a mixed media. I mean, it's just a very beautiful technique. I don't even know what you call it, collages or
yeah, I guess you'd call it a collage, but
yeah,
I'm not
yeah.
even sure if there's a proper term for exactly what
Yeah,
this is.
but it's really what what mother said in a conversation about modern art, and this was I think in 50s. She was talking about that some of the modern art that people are experimenting with, the artists are experimenting with. Some of it, she said, is categorically ugly, but she
Mm,
said that I could sense that there is a quest, there is a this trial and error going on, and artists in a few decades will be really experimenting with coming up with very new techniques and very new expressions. So I see your work as part of that movement. that mother had referred to in a way, prophesized long time back.
Yeah. Thank
So
you. That means a lot for you to
yeah,
say that. And I
very,
think
very subjective process.
I was going to ask you what you thought of, the mother and Sri Aurobindo talking about the coming of the subjective age. And I'm
Mm.
wondering if you thought maybe abstraction has something to do with that. And that abstract works don't necessarily say anything that your rational brain would, it's not like a figure or something your rational brain can see and make sense of, but maybe it bypasses the conscious thought
Yeah,
process.
yes, yes. But you see, if you see works like, I totally speak as a layperson, that Pollock artist, which,
Yeah, Jackson Pollock. Yeah.
Jackson Pollock, yeah. He
Mhm.
would, as you were saying, he would just throw paint on it and yeah,
Yeah.
whatever. I
Uh-huh.
saw a movie, I think, about him long time back. And that is also abstract, that is also subjective, but
Mhm.
it comes from a place of pain. I don't know,
Yeah.
I don't know the
Right.
personal story, but that chaos within, that
Mhm.
drama within, that very vital, what Shurbindo would speak of as false subjective. So
Mhm.
once, he
Thank
speaks of that this inner journey takes us initially to a false subjectivism, which is the vital subjectivism. And he gave the example of that actually in the collective context of Hitler.
you.
His
Yeah.
quest was also on finding the German soul, but that soul got confused with the German ego, the
Right.
racial ego. So it's that false subjective. So a lot of abstraction that comes as an expression of that vital subjectivism will not be,
Interesting.
yeah, will not be the
Yeah.
true,
Right.
will be that chaotic thing.
Mhm.
And what I think mother would also speak of as ugly in
Yeah.
that sense, because it is coming from a place of falsehood.
Yes.
But
Well, and that's another thing is we don't, you know, you would I can't I think I was listening to a talk you were giving, and it said something, an artist, a true Indian artist would be well versed in the inner journey, not just the outward journey. And in art school here, the inner journey has nothing to do with making art. And to me, it has everything to do with making art. I just think working on yourself inwardly is what expresses outwardly. And we're focused, the art schools and most artists are just focused on the outward, on the technique or what's aesthetically pleasing. And I think the real key is to focus on the inward journey, because it will express outwardly and you'll see it in your work.
yes, yes. But Chad, it's not just about US. In India also, it's the same thing. Not just art school, but generally schools, colleges are not speaking much about this inner journey. And
Yeah.
that's the big challenge. Um, how do you talk about I mean, to me, education, and I am a product of that system where nothing, so there is school and there is your family life, and from family, you'll pick up whatever, the Indian values that, more in the religious framework to begin with. But when you grow up a little bit, you get to see that, okay, this is not the outer thing. What my mother has been doing day in and day out, the morning, evening, lighting the lamp is actually an inner lightning. So for that, you have to kind of grow up a little bit. But the outer ritual was there to at least absorb
Yeah.
subconsciously and to get a sense of that, but nothing like that in the mainstream education process. Things are changing, things are shifting in some progressive schools, I would say, some alternative schools. But I don't know about too much about art schools, in the sense that if the focus is again only on mastering the technique, but what about mastering the self or knowing the self?
Yeah.
So that
Exactly.
the values of the soul or qualities of the soul, like calmness, or there is also a certain humility. The work that I'm seeing right now with plaster, which has your monochromatic phase, if you will, um,
Yeah.
there is a lot of humility in that work. It's very earthy. It can create that sense of how important humility is in our
Yeah.
evolutionary process. So many things can be read into each of these. Um, and it's not that you are doing it in a very mental sort of way, but it is coming through you because that's what you are experiencing. So when you
Uh,
described your process of praying and, sort of stepping back before beginning the work and getting out of the way, all that I see as a very yogic process.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
really, yeah.
Yeah. Whenever I kind of made the connection that everything is all kind of one thing, it was mind blowing for me. It's just there's
Yeah.
no disconnect from work and life and family, and yeah, it's amazing.
That's so great. That's really Mother's grace on you that you've been
Yes,
able to live.
so grateful.
Yeah.
I really am because I don't know. I I'm unbelievably grateful to get to be able to do what I do and have this life and this family, and just gratitude is just the beginning of the words that
Yeah.
I feel.
Yes, yes, yes. And your artwork certainly shows that. And I think my last question to you would have been what we just sort of alluded to in terms of what would you, I wouldn't say necessarily give suggestion or your, but anything you would like to speak about the contemporary art scene. You've mentioned a few times through our conversation, but I think the last point that what the inner journey is not referred to or not spoken of in art schools. And
Yeah,
if that may be your message to the
it
future
is.
artists.
Yes, because when I first started making art, I was trying to make sense of what I was doing, and I was just looking outward. What are other artists doing? What are other great artists? What have they done? How can I just implement this, or kind of rework this in my own way? And that was, I think, all the wrong ways to look at it. I think the best thing I could have done if I would have just started earlier was to just focus on my inner journey, because that more than anything has helped me evolve as an artist. It's not been, of course, learning techniques and stuff like that is important, but more than anything, the inner journey of learning about myself, and being sincere and fully surrendering has been the most important thing I could have done in my artistic journey. And I think if more artists would, kind of turn towards learning about themselves in a sincere way, I think that would help them more than anything else.
Well, I think with that, we can come to a close for this session, unless you have something you would like to add to any in terms of your creative process, in terms of anything about your journey. But I
No,
think,
I just want to extend a very sincere thank you to you. I'm very grateful to have connected with you, and you are such a wealth and light of knowledge that I'm very grateful to you, and I hope we can stay connected.
yes, yes, definitely. And I just hope I can see some of this artwork in person. Uh,
Yeah,
but ever since I left US, haven't gotten back at all. But
I was hoping you were going to be a speaker at the retreat they do in South Carolina, but
no, 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 no,
no,
no, no. That I think they already have in fact,
yeah,
I think just yesterday or day before today itself, I think there was a message or something about the speakers. So no, I'm not part of that program, but let's see, maybe through Orochit, there is another conference being planned. So let's see
yeah, that'd be
what
great.
happens. So yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Chad.
Thank you.
Thank you once again for agreeing to be part of this conversation series and for showing us your beautiful artwork and for sharing with us this inner and outer process, how the two are becoming one for you, have become and are, growing more and more, taking you towards this journey of oneness. So journey
Yeah,
of
thank you
wholeness
so much.
within. So thank you. Thank you so much.